Good evening, just gone 7 PM, and it is Tuesday, the 2nd of March, 2021. My name's Toby Lepati Mesme, and this is indeed another edition of MesmePolitics. Welcome along, thank you for joining us, I hope you're doing alright. We are live and on the way on the show. David Cameron shows his face again. Trump 2024, is it happening? How likely is it? But first, Michael Gove, is he on his way for the Home Office? Is Priti Patel on the way out? Is Michael Gove on the way in? Is Michael Gove the next Home Secretary? We discuss. We are live over the next half hour, bringing you all the latest from UK and US politics in a unique from a unique leftist perspective. You can get in touch in the chat. Please subscribe, like the video, turn notifications on, or email us, tobyjoshua2004 at gmail.com. Thank you for joining us for Tuesday's show. There was some reporting over the weekend in the Times, and I'll read it out to you here. What's to become of Michael Gove? Boris Johnson's ally turned Judas, who now sits beside him as a key power player in government, appears to be facing another fall from grace. But is it that simple? Ever since Boris Johnson entered Downing Street with a central pledge to get Brexit done, he has charged Michael Gove with the practicalities of delivering it. Yet, in recent weeks, Gove has seen that power stripped and handed to others. Lord Frost, Johnson's erstwhile Brexit negotiator, has now assumed Gove's responsibilities for negotiating the UK's relationship with the EU, leaving the cabinet minister increasingly powerless. Has a lack of trust between the two depleted his power? Some think so, pointing to the loss of his negotiating responsibilities as a sign that he is being sidelined by Johnson. They suggest the PM intends to cut adrift the man who betrayed him in the 2016 leadership election. A government source added that while Johnson respects Gove intellectually, he fundamentally doesn't trust him. Another notes that while Johnson did not trust Gove, he still needs him. Government source saying, it's a weird world. They're all friends, but everyone fucks each other over. It's very unpredictable. Yet all may not be as it seems, with Johnson increasingly concerned about the perception that he'd marginalised his once ally. Instead, there's increased chatter that Gove may soon land a new role. Many suspect that Gove's new role is temporary and that when Johnson's next reshuffles the cabinet, he will move his erstwhile rival into a more defined role, possibly as Home Secretary. The move would see Priti Patel move to party chairwoman, a move she's likely to resist. Downing Street source saying the view was that the Prime Minister had expanded significant capital on defending Priti, and she didn't keep her side of the bargain. The other possible department could be health, moving Matt Hancock to education to replace Gavin Williamson. For Gove, this may not be entirely unexpected, with a friend of Michael Gove telling The Times he used to joke that after Brexit he'd become Health Secretary and have to deliver that $350 million from the red bus. Michael Gove, is he heading for the Home Office? Deirdre says, thought I'd not seen much of him. I know, he's definitely been decreasing in prominence. He was very much central in the Brexit wranglings, as you can hear here.
I've asked you for a percentage chance of a deal by Sunday night, which appears to be the European Parliament's deadline. You're going to give me a high percentage. Is it more or lower than your usual 66%?
I'll stick... Well, my new resolution, adopted from a few weeks ago, is to avoid giving percentages. But I think at the moment, actually, as I said to Peter, I think regrettably, the chances are more likely that we won't secure an agreement. So at the moment, less than 50%. I think it's been the view has been expressed by some that if there is no agreement by December the 31st, that we would go back to the negotiating table a month, 2 months, or in 3 months' time. That would be it. We would have left on WTO terms. It's still the case, of course, that there would be contact between the UK and European nations and politicians, as one would expect. But what we would not be doing is attempting to negotiate a new deal.
Michael Gove, he is absolutely part of the Johnson operation, if you like. I think it would be very tricky to shift him for all those reasons that were quoted in the Times article, in that there are structural reasons why getting rid of him would cause a headache and would look bad politically, particularly within the intrapersonal dynamics of the Conservative Party. I think Michael Gove on the backbenchers, or a sideline Michael Gove, would be a very dangerous enemy to make, much like how Johnson was to Theresa May. Gove could be to Johnson. He is a snake, and you keep, your friends close, but your enemies closer. And I think that's, he's on board with the Johnson project in terms of policy. It's just whether or not he thinks he should be the one in number 10. He obviously does, but making him Home Secretary probably puts him further away from number 10 as opposed to nearer number 10. I mean, as if he's sidelined, he can make himself the vehicle of any angst against the Johnson-Sunak administration, as I think we should start calling it after Rishi Sunak's video yesterday, which was, the most. It was basically a leadership bid video, but actually it wasn't. It was meant to be a government video about the Treasury. Ridiculous, self-serving stuff. Priti Patel is a huge asset, so I'm sceptical that she'll be the one that goes. I really am. I hope she does. She's awful, but for myriad reasons, she's personally more venomous and hideous in her politics than Gove or Johnson or Sunak or any of the others. She is literally the worst. I'm sceptical they'll get rid of her because she's a big political asset, popular with the right of the party. She's who they put up when Johnson won that big majority, as you hear here.
As you say the word stunning victory, someone next to me is smiling rather politely at this point, but certainly looking quite happy. Priti Patel, the Home Secretary, welcome. Thanks for joining us. So, all right, it's a poll, it's an exit poll, but it's a very big sample and it's across the UK. And it is suggesting a pretty solid majority for Boris Johnson and you and your team. So your initial reaction to that?
Well, I think, first of all, we should all recognise that this is a projection and not an actual result. And you've said this, Laura said this in her opening remarks as well. We'll see the results coming through. That is the right way forward. But, this has been a hard-fought general election campaign at a cold time of the year as well. We've all been out on the road. We've had amazing candidates, day in, day out, taking that message out across the country that we need to break the gridlock that has dominated Parliament for the last 3 years, and that to move the country forward, to end the paralysis, to get Brexit done, and to get on and do all the things that we've been speaking about as Conservatives in this general election campaign, we need a functioning Conservative majority.
Well, if you do have a majority of 80 plus, there'll be no excuse for not breaking the deadlock because you'll have the majority you need. Viewers will be wondering, OK, well, what is Priti Patel? What are the colleagues going to be doing with this majority straight away? What can we expect in the couple of weeks to come? I know it's before Christmas.
Well, importantly, as we have outlined throughout this entire campaign, the focus has been on Brexit. We've had that gridlock in Parliament. We want to get Brexit done. You've heard the Prime Minister say this. Get it done before Christmas. Introduce the legislation and get that moving.
She's central. She's been increasingly central to the operation, only overshadowed now, really, in terms of, pizzazz by Rishi Sunak, the self-promoter-in-chief. She's absolutely a loose cannon, absolutely not very conciliatory if the government wants to sort of broaden the tent, be more conciliatory and sort of foster a broad coalition going forward for the next decade or so, sustaining them in power. You could see a Johnson government amassing 50% of the vote, save COVID difficulties and Brexit divisions. They could run in a very populist way, in the same way New Labour did, in sort of, we're bland enough that everyone can get on board, but actually we're doing very sinister stuff, but you don't realise it, sort of thing. But she is absolutely a loose cannon, and that could work against her. It would mean she'd be a good attack dog for Johnson as party chairwoman, right? Putting out press releases, Keir Starmer, same old Labour, and all that shit. Michael Gove is, well, Michael Gove. You get what you get with Michael Gove. You love him, you hate him. He's an odious individual, but he's not Priti Patel. It would be a great improvement in the Home Office. It would just, I can't see Michael Gove being as openly sadistic as Priti Patel is partial to being. It would be a big shift. The first shift in this government of one of the great officers of state, with the exception of the Sajid Javid Rishi Sunak change. And that was a huge step change. and it was a relatively low-profile Sajid Javid, turned out to be a relatively high-profile Rishi Sunak. Moving from Patel to Gove would be more the safe pair of hands than the political attack dog, and I think it is pretty irresponsible to have in the Home Office someone who's basically just one of your political stars. Put her elsewhere for the party. I would say put Gove in the Home Office. I never thought I'd be advocating Michael Gove gets any sort of job, but really, I'd much rather Michael Gove than Priti Patel. John says, can't believe anyone thinks that woman is an asset. I think she is. I wouldn't say woman, I'd just say individual. But also, it's not about gender, but also I think she is to them politically. I've said she's awful. It's borderline sadistic. However, she has a lot of her draconian positions actually have a lot of traction with the public. Definitely will resonate in the Red Wall. Definitely will resonate with more socially conservative ethnic minority voters, older ethnic minority voters. I think she's a winner for them. She's absolutely a winner for the Tory party. I'm sorry if that offends anyone's liberal attitudes, but it's just the case. If we don't reckon with it, get ready for that 200-seat Tory majority in 2024. You know, we've got to face up to the facts as they are, not as we would like them to be. In our little snowflake caves where we all sort of get offended at everything. We've got to realise that out there are some very sinister politicians with a lot of broad electoral appeal. We've got to be real about it. We've got to try and combat it. That's my view. Now, Trump 2024. Is it happening? Dear God. We've talked about this before on the show, but I think we need to talk about it more because he has now obviously spoken at CPAC or TPAC, the American Conservative Union. 2021, they found a Nazi symbol there yesterday, so lovely stuff. Let's have a listen to Donald Trump more in full in terms of his speech. Give you a proper chunk of the speech. Get ready to sit through this.
Hello, CPAC. Do you miss me yet? Do you miss me? A lot of things going on. To so many wonderful friends, conservatives, and fellow citizens in this room and all across our country, I stand before you today to declare that the incredible journey we begun together, we went through a journey like nobody else. There's never been a journey like it. There's never been a journey so successful. We began it together 4 years ago, and it is far from being over. We've just started. Our movement of proud, hardworking, and you know what this is? The hardest working people, hardworking American patriots, is just getting started. And in the end, we will win. We will win. We've been doing a lot of winning. As we gather this week, we're in the middle of a historic struggle for America's future, America's culture, and America's institutions, borders, and most cherished principles. Our security, our prosperity, and our very identity as Americans is at stake, like perhaps at no other time. So no matter how much the Washington establishment and the powerful special interests may want to silence us, let there be no doubt we will be victorious and America will be stronger and greater than ever before. I want to thank my great friends, Matt and Mercedes Schlapp. Matt, thank you. Thank you. Mercedes, thank you very much. And the American Conservative Union for hosting this extraordinary event. They're talking about it all over the world, Matt. I know you don't like that, but that's okay. All over the world. I also want to pay my love and respect to the great Rush Limbaugh.
Who am I? Why am I here? What does it all mean? And it dawned on me that science per se hadn't answered.
Who is watching closely and smiling down on us. He's watching and he's loving it, and he loves Catherine. Catherine, thank you for being here. So great. Thank you, Catherine. He loved you, Catherine. I will tell you that. So fantastic. Thank you, Catherine, very much. To each and every one of you here at CPAC, I am more grateful to you than you will ever know.
Thoughts on that? Thoughts on any of that? There was a little advert playing there. That wasn't a hashtag spawn. That was YouTube on this computer from which I'm streaming, interrupting. So please don't feel obliged. That was not a hashtag spawn moment. This show advocates the abolition of capitalism. Therefore, we won't be playing any ads. Don't come back to me and moan when we have 200 viewers or something and I start shamelessly promoting body sprays to you because need the money. Here comes the money. Okay. Trump, yeah, I'm on a bit of a one today. So I think Trump might just be playing games. You know, he's been hinting about running again. I think to a degree it is just, and it still is just the optics of it. The party is his. It's on tenterhooks, waiting on his every word, whatever he says. At any point, no matter how lunatic-like it is, will have sweeping ramifications for the future of the Republican Party. The people who said otherwise have been proven almost humiliatingly wrong. Trump 2024, in many ways, is the least worst thing that could happen. Bear with me. Trump will probably lose. That's the point. If you have someone, this is the only other option. It won't be a moderate Republican. They don't exist. They haven't existed for, 40 years? Since Eisenhower, more like 60 years. So what you would get would be someone with the Trump agenda, either the same or even further, much more competent, much more deadly, much more likely to win. Therefore, I'd much rather a bloated 78-year-old Donald Trump running in 2024 get the nomination, lose to the Democrat, than some sort of cold-blooded far-right killer coming in, which is imminently likely. AOC here talking about why anyone who thinks the $15 minimum wage is ridiculous is themselves insane.
Manchin has attacked you and the squad in the past, denouncing what he calls your crazy socialist agenda. And yet a majority of West Virginians, according to a poll conducted on behalf of groups that support the wage hike, support you on the minimum wage and not him. So what's your message to Joe Manchin tonight?
Listen, I think that if any, not just Senator Manchin, but any person who thinks that a $15 minimum wage is the crazy socialist agenda is living in a dystopian capitalist nightmare. And we should not prop that up. We should not continue that. People are sleeping in their cars. They can't afford baby formula. There are basic goods that people can't afford to live on $7.25. It is deeply, deeply shameful that we are even having this conversation, because when you take the minimum wage from several decades ago and you actually account for inflation and productivity gains to today, it should be $24 an hour. So we need other Democrats to understand how deep of a compromise $15 an hour is. And by the way, this bill has a multi-year phase-in as well. So even if we pass this, to progressives' discontent, by the way, we are talking about a multi-year phase-in, which will, really chip away even more. So $15 for his, as you mentioned, his own constituents believe in a $15 minimum wage. In almost every pocket of this country, you cannot afford rent if you are making minimum wage. And in the United States of America, you should, if you are working a full-time job, you should be able to afford to live. And by the way, when we keep minimum wage artificially low, it's at a huge cost to our government and taxpayers as well, because there are essentially enormous subsidies to companies like Walmart, Amazon, et cetera, in the form of us paying for social safety net programs that would not be necessary if people were paid a living wage to begin with.
So that's AOC there. So of course, absolutely right. The position of the Overton window politically in the States is really comical. It's just insane. However, it is shifting in a leftward direction. You couldn't really say the same here, because Labour are working desperately to push it back to the right now. Corbyn's Labour, you know, spent every bit of blood and toil and destroyed Jeremy Corbyn's reputation through relentless media smears, just desperately to shift the Overton window just a little bit to the left. And Keir Starmer's Labour are now just aggressively, the Tories are conceding to us and offering a progressive taxation system. No, push it right back, until basically saying, you know, we're progressive because we won't spit on poor people. That's where Keir Starmer wants to be in 2024. He really does want it to be a contest of who'll kick homeless people in the groin less hard. That's the politics that these people are dealing in. It is shifting genuinely to the left in the US, many reasons, mainly that the leadership of the Democratic Party, they're condescending towards the left. They're not openly hostile, and they do know that they have to push back against Republicans. They're useless at it, but they're not spending sleepless nights saying AOC is an anti-Semite and we must get rid of her. We need more people like AOC. She's actually not very popular with the broader American public, at least neutral, possibly negative. All of the leftists outside Sanders are similar. Is that racism? The fact people don't have a favourable view of the Squad? Potentially. It's women of colour. They're strong. They're proud. They're very forward with their beliefs. Maybe. I think it will change in time. I think it's a matter of building up trust. I don't know how accurate those polls are, because not enough people really have a really hot-headed view. They've not really been exposed to these people enough, because all they hear often, middle America only hears, you know, smears on Fox News. So, you know, if someone like Bernie Sanders can get popular, I think someone like AOC can. I think it will change over time. I sincerely hope it will. But of course, we'll see what happens, and she's doing amazing work, as are the whole Squad. They're all incredible. Now, whatever the criticisms, they're all very good. Now, David Cameron has put his head up above the pulpit of snakes that he left in his wake after he resigned as Prime Minister. He's criticised Boris Johnson's aid cuts and the abolition of the Department for International Development, and accused Theresa May of making a very bad mistake in merging key cabinet and security roles. The former Prime Minister's criticism of his successors came as he made a rare virtual return to Parliament, where he told the Joint Committee on National Security Strategy on Monday that he was sure there'll be a big inquiry into the handling of the COVID pandemic. He also eagerly mounted a defence of his own I ate food before the show. His own much criticised decision to call the referendum on the UK's membership of the EU, and appeared keen to reject suggestions that he'd rushed into it after he was asked whether the move had been part of an overall national strategy. Thing I will say, because people say, oh, I'd take David Cameron back. No, I wouldn't. Johnson and Sunak over Cameron and Osborne any day. Johnson and Sunak, whatever their hideous flaws, were not as overtly evil in their policy as Johnson and Sunak. Cameron and Osborne were they were the pits where young people, refugees, and the poor's dreams go to die. Essentially, that was the extent of their political project. It is an immensely privileged thing to go, I don't like Boris Johnson because he's got scarecrow hair, bring back the sensible grown-up David Cameron, when actually the sensible grown-up David Cameron socked it to the poor much more than Boris Johnson has had the opportunity to so far as Prime Minister. Whatever the callousness around free school meals, whatever the borderline sociopathic attitude to other human beings, he's just not been as despicable as David Cameron was. David Cameron, of course, famous for resigning after he lost the referendum, through which he and his team embarked on what really was Project Fear, and it lost.
The British people have voted to leave the European Union, and their will must be respected. I want to thank everyone who took part in the campaign on my side of the argument, including all those who put aside party differences to speak in what they believed was the national interest. And let me congratulate all those who took part in the Leave campaign for the spirited and passionate case that they made. The will of the British people is an instruction that must be delivered. It was not a decision that was taken lightly, not least because so many things were said by so many different organisations about the significance of this decision. So there can be no doubt about the result. Across the world, people have been watching the choice that Britain has made. I would reassure those markets and investors that Britain's economy is fundamentally strong. And I would also reassure Brits living in European countries and European citizens living here that there will be no immediate changes in your circumstances.
Okay, David Cameron, awful, all-round awful guy. Really the worst kind of Tory, he took the Thatcher project and made it more Thatcher. He de-Thatchered it in the extent that we're not Thatcher, we're more socially liberal now, but he actually, in an economic sense, made it more Thatcher than Margaret Thatcher would have ever dared to do. Over to economics, I want to talk, on the eve of the budget. What would a progressive budget be? What would my budget be if I was setting out a budget to the House of Commons? Well, we need to dispel some misconceptions first. The first is, short term, there is no rush on raising taxes. We shouldn't strangle the recovery. We sure as hell aren't going to go insolvent. We should see immediately a windfall profits tax on those who've made a killing, an online service tax to hit digital giants. In addition, let's implement immediately a wealth tax. None of these measures would hurt the recovery or take money out of the population's pockets. All of them hit those already doing well, and the fact Labour isn't pushing a wealth tax when the circumstances have never been more favourable is ridiculous. Regarding austerity logic, I want to dispel some myths, first of all. We never have needed to balance the books or pay down the debt. Please don't cling on to that delusion. The view of household debt and government debt as fundamentally the same is economically illiterate, and a bad faith argument used to dupe the public into either allowing elites to shaft them with eye-watering budget cuts, or at times like this, when we're not doing austerity, shaft them with regressive tax rises as some sort of urgent matter. We have to raise taxes quickly. We have our own central bank. Interest rates so low, they won't change anytime soon, that we're paying less on the debt than when it was much smaller. And that same central bank can, if necessary, doesn't harm us in any way. It doesn't mean we're in danger. Or it doesn't weaken the economy. Buy up more government bonds and keep interest rates low for as long as it wants. We have that power. Very much intends to do that. The deficit hawks have been proven wrong time and time again. They were wrong in the 70s. They were wrong because, we were told the deficit was the problem, and it soared under Thatcher and Reagan. And, the economy was dreadful, but it had nothing to do with the budget cuts, and things got worse under Thatcher and Reagan. But again, whether it was good or bad, it had absolutely nothing to do with the deficit clock. Deficit clock is ridiculous. The main reason people like Thatcher and Reagan came in, talked about all these things, is because they hurt the wealthy. Things like inflation, things like the risk of devaluation, things like, the debt. They were all championed as issues not because they were of the utmost importance to working people. Things like full employment were. They were pushed because they harmed the elites. The elites were worried they wouldn't be able to make excess profits. That was the problem. That's why there were so many strikes. Not because we had lots of debt and the inflation had to end, therefore we had strikes. There's massive historical misreading by a lot of people. So as I say, progressive policymakers shouldn't have the debt in their minds whatsoever when crafting policy for the COVID recovery. It's not entirely irrelevant, but it should not be in our minds when we talk about what we do next. So what do we need to see? We need to see a 100 billion people's stimulus package. As Ian Blackford says, we need to boost it like Biden and kickstart a turbocharged recovery with a green stimulus package to stimulate demand, followed by and this is the bare minimum, guys, a £500 billion People's Green New Deal, mobilising massive state investment on a scale this country has never seen, going faster and further than Labour in 2019, and reshaping our economy away from neoliberalism, while absorbing demand shock from the Brexit deal and taking rail, mail, water and broadband into public ownership over the next 5 to 10 years, doing all the things we need to do to recover, doing all the things we could never do while members of the European Union. People can call this excessive all they like, but this is smart economics. It'll lift millions from poverty, improve quality of life right across the country, put more money in people's pockets, reshape our economic model, and it provides the best chance of growing our way out of this mess. Yes, we can afford it, because failing to match this moment, as both main parties are, will be 10 times more costly to all of us. This is what we need to do. What would these taxes be used for? A windfall, etc. Well, obviously it brings more money into the Treasury. We can use it to go into, not the only funding mechanism, but it can go into funding progressive policies. It can go into funding the stimulus. It can go into things like the Green New Deal, just as part of the broader situation. It's always good to have more money coming in, and it helps to rebalance the inequalities in society. You know, it's not tax because we desperately need money from wherever we get it. It's taxes in a way that's progressive and reshapes the economic model. And again, if you're saying this destroys capitalism, actually it doesn't. You see, smart you. If you want to keep capitalism, you're going to have to make compromises. And those compromises include things like what I'm proposing. If you want everything to tick along and eventually capitalism to be destroyed, keep doing what you're doing, because you're winning my arguments for me. If you want, the capitalism mode of production will survive under this idea. It's not what I want. This is the compromise. Take the compromise. Don't take the compromise. We'll revolt. It's fine. Okay, that is it from me today. Thank you very much for listening. We will be back same time, same place tomorrow. Please subscribe, turn notifications on, like the video, and MesmePolitics will be back for Wednesday from 7 p.m. talking all about the budget. Rishi Sunak, will he be tightening the taxes? Will he be loosening the purse strings? Will he be spending? Will it be a transitional budget? Will it be a kick the can down the road budget? Will it be the budget of hard choices? What does it all mean? And what meaningless platitudes will we hear from droning Starmer? We'll see. Will Dishy Rishi deliver? Join us tomorrow.